morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you're watching this podcast. This podcast series we call Race, Culture, and the Church. Race, Culture, and the Church. As I share each time, this series started 1 week after the murder of George Floyd. And we have a whole body of accumulated podcasts. And I invite you to go back and point, click, listen, subscribe, like, share with others. And what I also like to share is that race, culture, and the church, think of it like a Venn diagram where you have race, culture, and church. And at that intersection is where we aim to be. Usually 2 out of 3, sometimes 3 out of 3. But we will see today, and I am pleased. It is taken a minute to get here, but I am pleased to have Assemblymember and candidate for Mayor of Sacramento, Kevin McCarty. Welcome in.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. As I joke, but don't joke, our Cracker Jack research team, which consists of me, pulled off information from your site. So if there's something wrong, blame yourself.
It's on me, yeah.
It's all on you. It says since 2014, Kevin McCarty has served as Assembly member representing the 6th Assembly District, which includes the majority of the city of Sacramento and parts of the unincorporated county. And you serve as chair of the Assembly Public Safety Committee. And we definitely want to touch on that in a minute, working to combat some of the state's most pressing public safety issues, such as retail theft, gun violence, and drug abuse. 2014. Before that, you were council member for Sacramento. Was there a public service, Kevin McCarty, before that? Was city council your first entree into public service in this way?
No, I served for 4 years before that on the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Commission. So wow. I know right here we're in your church in Oak Park. So we spent a lot of time in Oak Park. Redevelopment, went away in 2010 during the Great Recession, but it was a great tool to renovate neighborhoods and help spur economic development. Big project over here, of course, is St. Hope. So the redevelopment agency helped provide some funding and some loans to St. Hope at the time, Kevin Johnson's organization, to buy that project there at the corner on Broadway there, his marquee project, 40 Acres project. So I did that, and that gave me an interest in public service. It certainly wasn't where I was focused earlier in life, but I've had a chance to serve my hometown of Sacramento, and it's been rewarding, and I know we've been effective, and I know my work's not done as well.
Hear, hear. So when you were, and also on your site, give full disclosure, you received you earned your degrees from CSU Long Beach and CSU Sacramento. Your major was?
Government, political science.
Well, so you did have your arc was bending that way towards governance, though.
Yeah, at the age of 20, there was a young man running for president. His name was Bill Clinton. I was super inspired by him. I think he was 45 at the time, a couple years younger than I am. Yeah. And Al Gore was, I think, 43, 44. And they were the next generation running for president and vice president. So I got inspired in politics then in 92. But it was wild because just 2 years before that, I know right here we're in Oak Park on 4th Avenue at your church over here, 4th and 39th. And right next to you is the American Legion Adult School. And 2 years before that inspiration moment for me, reflection moment on public service and public policy, where I just started getting, focused in college and trying to go in the right direction, I was literally at an adult school. I had flunked out of high school here in Sacramento at El Camino High School. I didn't graduate. And I had to dust myself off, enroll myself at Winterstein Adult School, which is now shut down, but it was right there behind Arden Fair Mall.
Okay.
And that was a very humbling moment for me.
Doubt.
And, but, taught me a tremendous amount of life lessons. And just fast forward to my job as an assembly member, as you just noted. So, and I like to go back to adult schools like a Legion and talk to the kids there, because everybody has a different journey in life, how they get there. And my very first day in the assembly, I was I went to my Capitol office in 2014, as you mentioned. And right next to my office was the office of a guy named Rob Bonta, who's now our California Attorney General. Well, he grew up in Sacramento. We went to middle school together. So we kind of kept in touch. He went to a different high school, but I knew of him. He knew of me. And then we kept in touch later on in life. And after high school, he went to Yale and then Yale Law School. I think he was, a Rhodes Scholar or something like that. Very distinguished student.
Sounds like a much different track.
And then a year after high school, I went to Winterstein Adult School. And then 20-something years later, we're both in the Assembly, same jobs, doing big stuff for California. Right. I had significant legislation. He did too. We were on the same path for 10 years together. And so it reminded me that it's not where you are at that time, it's that where you go. And you're never defined at that moment. And so I think that can be a reflection to people in life, that it's a journey, it's a challenge. Not all the people at the state capitol were the high school valedictorians. We're student government, went to law school, we're the best speakers, we're the most popular kids in school. Some people come from all different paths. And I think that's tremendous that we have that in government, because I have a great understanding of struggle and families and people and the hustle. But also it's a reminder to young people that aren't necessarily doing well, that there's always tomorrow.
Well, you have twin daughters. When you have that time around the dinner table to talk, you share that same story with your girls?
Well, it's funny you ask, because I just had my farewell kind of celebration at the Capitol, where we had speeches and tributes from assembly members talking about my work, and I got to give a speech. And afterwards, my wife was driving our twin girls home, and one of them said, "So Dad didn't graduate from high school?"
Wow.
And so that was their big takeaway.
Wow.
Not the work that I had done,
That's
not writing massive police reform bills.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Or universal after school programs.
Yeah.
I wrote the universal free preschool bill. I greatly expanded college and the Cal Grant middle class scholarship, made community college free, expanded all these great things that I did. The one thing that they remembered on the way home that day is, Dad didn't graduate from high school. And then sure enough, they're 16-year-olds, they're very sharp. And people say, your life is hard right now. You're running for mayor, you're in the assembly. I said, well, that's child's play compared to having two 16-year-old girls at home.
100%.
So the other day I was
100%.
asking one of them about their grades, and they're like, well, you didn't do that well in high school. And so
like a conversation I had with my daughter at one point in her life, I said, okay, well, when you are a parent, you do better than I'm doing. So in the meantime, do what I'm saying and what I'm asking.
That's good.
You to do.
I'll remember that.
It's like when you get a chance, do better. So what has being in, it just sounds like being in the assembly has really been a time of not only preparation, but shaping. I suspect, not that you didn't collaborate in the city council, but with the assembly, you're one of 80. And so you have to negotiate. You have to negotiate if you want anything done. That had to be forming for you, not even in your potential as becoming mayor of Sacramento, but just you, Kevin McCarty. Unpack that if there's anything to unpack there in terms of that time in assembly shaping who you are today.
Well, the work and collaboration is key. And I would say it's very similar to when I was on the city council, because you need others to be effective. For example, I was a young city council member. I got too many calls from our police chief about a young kid getting shot and killed in my district. And at that time, I decided I was going to write some bills cracking down on illegal gun and ammunition sales in the city, which the new council, the mayor and Kaplan and Guerra are now pushing, and I fully applaud that as well. And I came up with this idea, and I decided, I couldn't do it on my own. I was a new kid in the block, and I was really young, so I needed to build alliances. So I got the guy next to me on the city council. He happened to be the former sheriff of county of Sacramento, and the only Republican on the city council, a guy named Robbie Waters. And I said, will you do this with me? Will you co-author this law, these 2 laws with me? And he said, yeah, he did it. We did it together. So it taught me, the old African proverb, you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together
Correct.
with others.
Correct.
And so in the assembly and in the city council, I've always had that mindset. It's kind of my personality anyway. I'm a leader, an elected leader. I'm out there all the time, but I'm a lower key individual. And I like to work with others. It just fits my style. And I know that in this business, you need that if you want to be effective. So, running.
It's got to be frustrating though.
Well, no, because I realize that you can have grand ideas and grand speeches, and a lot of people have great plans and press releases, but they're not very effective. I've been around a lot of political people who have ran for office or were elected for office who weren't very effective. And so at the end of the day, people are hiring me to do a job, to be effective, to deliver, and to produce tangible results for communities, for families, for neighborhoods, tackling our problems. And I'm very, very mindful of that's my job. And that's what I want my legacy to be is the results and the change that we've made. So yeah, it's been a tremendous experience serving. And I like to say too, that when I go around, I see people all the time and they say, you're my guy, you're McCarthy.
Yeah.
No, that's another guy,
yeah,
Kevin
yeah.
McCarthy. You're McCarty, you're my, and they get my title wrong. They're like, you're my
Senator,
Congress, supervisor,
yeah.
senator. They get it all wrong. But the thing that they realize is that I am elected to help them. And they want to share with me a problem or an issue. And so I have to be mindful that people don't know boundaries, districts. They don't always know the levels of government, who this and that. They just know that we hire people, elect people to work for them and help solve problems. So, I've had a tremendous opportunity to work on issues. And you mentioned that this podcast was born, out in the aftermath of the summer of George Floyd. And I think, that year was a major year when a lot of my ideas started coming together. I had been banging on these issues of racial justice with reintegration of the formerly incarcerated, some smart police reform, accountability measures, and those never saw the light of day until that summer of 2020, as well as my efforts on after school and universal preschool in the year or 2 years after that, when a lot of my work came to fruition. So sometimes it's things out of your control,
Correct.
that just make the skies open up after major rainstorms, and you have to pounce when the moment's there.
Correct. So is there I'm sure there's probably several things, but is there something that stands out in your mind that as you conclude your time that, boy, I wish we were able to get this across the finish line, but we weren't able to do it, at least while you've been in office?
I don't have any major regrets. We tried on, it was a Hail Mary effort in the last few years to focus on making college in California debt-free, not free college, but debt-free, so students wouldn't have to take out student loans, the grants, and would be able to pay everything else based upon their family contributions. So we're about a third of the way there, and so that's a good thing in politics is, you're running a relay and you pass the baton on to the next generation. So I have assembly members and senators ready to take on that work next time. So, I on some of the work that I have got across the finish line, the same thing. Like I think one of my marquee accomplishments is I wrote the law for free universal preschool for every 4-year-old in California, regardless of where you live, regardless of income, which is a change maker for poor families, Black families, middle-class families. And when I gave that final speech on the assembly floor to vote for that bill, I listed the 12 people who had introduced that before me, who had failed. And they didn't fail. It just, the skies weren't open for them
Correct.
at that moment.
Correct.
So that's a reflection in politics that there's a time. I know you could probably reflect on some, biblical reference from right here in your other world. But you just have to be mindful of that. And plug along and chip along. And, sometimes it takes a while to get things accomplished. And luckily I was there enough. I was there 10 years to my work. Some of my big efforts were able to come to fruition at the end.
Your analogies are very good. So completing at least the public service arc of Kevin McCarty, you're running for mayor. You were a city council member. You've gone at the state level. Now you're coming home, so to speak, different role. What's the different Kevin McCarty as mayor versus Kevin McCarty as council member? What are you going to bring in terms of lived experience back to Sacramento? Still Sacramento. It's bigger.
Yeah.
More issues. A lot of them the same. Some new.
Yeah, well, certainly since I was a council member 20 years, so I was in my early 30s, 31 when I won my election for city council. So I'm different now. I've been married, had 2 children. That's humbled me a lot, having 2 teenage girls at home.
Teenagers will humble you.
Sophomores in high school. So, but safety matters to me a lot for them. Safe neighborhoods, addressing public safety issues, homelessness, gun violence, drugs. Those issues are very front and center in my life. What I see, young people these days, our girls walk home from school from a light rail station. Correct. So I want them to be safe. And that's very, very mindful about the job that I have. It's for the next generation. I think about them a lot as mayor 5-10 years from now, and answering the questions, will young people have a place to live?
Correct.
Can they afford to rent here or buy a home? Or will they say, you know what, I'm going to go to Boise, to Salem, to Arizona, Colorado, somewhere else, leave California? So I think that's really key. And also we need to make sure that we have a city that has, a vibrant economy with a multiple employment paths, not just state jobs, which are good, but other jobs as well. And I really liked what we've done in Sacramento. I grew up here. I came back. I went away for college for a couple of years and came back. And every year, I think we've gotten better. And, the scene with our music and our food and our arts, our culture and our sports. And I think that keeps young people and old people like, correct, hey, Sacramento's a fun city.
Correct.
And so I'll use my experience and all that to help push these issues forward to tackle and check all those boxes. And what I'll do in my job is you need to be effective in this job. You can't just give a speech and a proclamation, and you need to be able to connect the dots and work with people. And that's what I've always done and been effective at. Big problems and small. From youth to housing to gun violence to homelessness response. And I'll give you countless examples if we have time. But I always pride myself on looking for practical, tangible solutions to our problems. And this is what this job entails, is, kind of being, as the mayor, you're one of 9 votes, but you're the leader of the city and sometimes the region. And so you have to be, analogy, the quarterback on the football team, the point guard on the basketball team,
or the nose tackle on defense,
or the catcher for the baseball team, to be able to call the plays and help dictate where we're going. And so I'm excited for that. I work well with the city council. The majority of them who are weighing in on this mayoral race have endorsed our candidacy. So I'm up for the challenge and looking forward to serving Sacramento in this new capacity. But it's always about service. The title's a title, but it's about serving Sacramento and solving problems.
Well, when I knew we were going to run out of time, and we are, but when former council member Jay Chenier was in this space, as he was leaving, I said, so what are the 3 biggest issues that your replacement is going to have to face? He said, homelessness, homelessness, homelessness.
Yeah.
I don't think too much has changed. But I might insert, as we look at downtown Sacramento and the state employees that used to be there on the regular, that's changed quite a bit. How would you not solve those issues, but how would you approach solving those issues? You mentioned collaboration, working with other council members. I'm sure Mayor Steinberg, he would say, well, I've done the same thing. We're working together, but there's a level of impatience that a lot of folks have reached. It's like, okay, just deal with the issue. Just get it done. I just, fill the potholes, get the homeless people off the street, just make my life better.
Yeah.
And how do you couple that with community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're in this together. So for homeless, for example, we need to partner more with the county of Sacramento. The county of Sacramento literally has 10 times more money in the city to deal with homelessness, addiction, behavioral health issues. So, we need to partner with them. And homelessness, when I was a council member, this never came up. It was an issue. I can count all the town halls that I had in my district over 10 years, dozens. And I don't remember one person ever getting up and talking about homelessness. It was an issue for the downtown council district where they had loaves and fishes down in the core. But, this is a new issue for cities, not just Sacramento, across California, across our nation. So we need to step it up. We need to, and there's not one issue, one solution on this, multiple solutions. So here's the 5 things I would do briefly, and I'm running out of time. I think we need to enforce the law. We can't have urban camping. We can't allow encampments at city parks and in front of neighborhoods, in front of churches. We must take a look at our spending to see if we're getting our biggest bang for our buck. Number 2, that means auditing our homeless spending to see what programs are most productive. We give some to nonprofits. Maybe we need to partner more with churches and say, hey, you have land there. Can you build 10 tiny homes on your property? Number 3, I mentioned this earlier. We need to look at partnering more with the county and other jurisdictions. We have joint powers authorities. It's something that Vice Mayor Maple and I have been working on, trying to have us work on these issues together, because homelessness doesn't have boundaries.
No.
Yeah. And we have joint powers authorities with local governments from El Grove, Sacramento County, the city, Rancho, the jurisdictions on wastewater. We have one on cable TV. We have one on library, on public transportation, air quality. We have more than a dozen on these other issues, but not the number one issue that everybody wants us to solve. So the Sacramento grand jury came out last year and said one of the major faults of ours is we don't have enough cooperation and coordination. So, and then 4, we need to look for more cost-effective solutions to addressing homelessness. Some of the advocates push for this thing that's called permanent supportive housing, essentially apartments for homeless individuals. But that's $600,000 or more to help one person. I'd rather take that $600,000 and have 10 tiny homes at different locations, maybe even churches, and help 10 people. You give one person a loaf of bread, or 10 people. Poorly weaving in your biblical references here.
I'm tracking with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the 5th thing that we need to do is work on this from the behavioral health perspective. There are certain individuals, not all homeless have, addiction or behavioral health, but a lot do. And untreated mental illness that you see manifesting on the streets for homelessness is something that we all see more than anything else.
Correct.
And I believe there are certain people that need to get treatment. There needs to be compulsory treatment for certain individuals. And so, we've passed laws the last few years, which are going to make my life easier as mayor to focus on the people that need help the most. And, that means having, putting people in locations like we used to have the old state hospitals, getting people treatment and making it a requirement that that's accepted, or we send people there.
You are tracking either intentionally or not with what Sheriff Cooper has suggested. He's been in this space, and he echoed what you just shared. I wish I had time. Drew Escobar has told me my time is up, but you have to come back. I would love for you to come back in December after the election is over and continue this conversation. There's so much meat on the bone, as they say, that I would like to continue in conversation with Assemblymember Kevin McCarty. Assemblymember, thank you so very much for entering into this space. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed the conversation.